Hi, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about what happens when you enter into a step family and find that you're dealing with children who are suffering from anxiety or beginning to suffer from anxiety. This happens to many step families, and you think you're going into what might be called a normal child situation and find that you've got all these additional problems you have to cope with. I don't mean to be unfair to stepchildren and call them not normal, but I just mean that there can be loads of changes in a step family that bring about anxiety-inducing behaviours that can happen in other family types too, but are often found in step families. And it's really difficult as a step parent to cope because you weren't expecting it, and it can impact on your relationship. Hi, I post once a week, so do subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, and I'll let you know every time I post. Today we're going to be talking about what to do if you find you become a step parent to a child with anxiety or that develops anxiety. When we become a step parent, the children can be struggling a little bit with things that other children may be learning to take in their stride or can do with ease. I'm talking about anything really, maybe socially with their friends or socially with your friends, or be able to feel robust about going out, eating and trying new foods, experimenting with things, feeling adventurous, feeling up for things. And some children from other family types struggle with this enormously too. So I'm not trying to pretend that this is a situation that can be uniquely belonging to a step family. However, it is more common to find children that struggle with anxiety in a step family than in some other family types. And this is because a stepchild has had to struggle a little bit more than other children with change in their life. Becoming a step family, by definition, means that there's been change. Sometimes there have been several changes. What happens is that when we feel stress, and that often happens when there's change, we release hormones into our body which warns us that there may be a fear or a risk. The hormones, like adrenaline, get released when they get triggered by something that flags themselves as a possible danger or fear. So the child, when they're experiencing change, can release these hormones into their body and feel a real response to a perceived threat. So this real response is likely to have taken place somewhere in their body. Sometimes it's their tummy and it gives them tummy aches. Sometimes it's in their head and they have headaches. Sometimes it's their chest and they can't breathe, or their throat and they can't swallow, or any other number of sort of physical anxiety type responses. Sometimes they feel it in their head, like they just feel sad or tearful or angry or hyper. These kinds of behaviours, which are put under the general umbrella of anxiety, are a real response to a perceived threat. And they are common in step-family children. And the question is, what can you do about it? Because it can really start inhibiting your life. Like, if the child gets anxiety before you go out somewhere, sometimes it stops you going out. If the child gets anxiety and can't go to sleep, then it keeps you awake all night and doesn't give you any time with your partner in the evenings. So this can really eat into your relationship and the step-family dynamic. The main thing is to realise that the child is not doing this on purpose. And if you tell the child to sort of ignore it, it'll get better, they'll get over it. If only they were to just get in the car and we'll go out, I'm sure it won't be as bad as they think it's going to be. Now, you can win them over once or twice like that, but actually it might work, but they might up the ante too, so it gets a lot worse, and then you can't even go out. So one needs to address the problem. Get close to the child and build as good a relationship as you possibly can, so that the child can trust you to tell you things. Ask the child, not at that time when they're stressed and anxious, but at another time when they seem a little bit calmer. Ask them to talk you through what happens when their anxiety is triggered. Ask them where in their body they feel it. Talk through why it might be happening and how it isn't maybe logical that they should get this reaction to something like going out or trying a new food or eating in a restaurant or whatever it happens to be. See if they can't see that it doesn't really make sense. And do experiments too. I mean, they may say, if I eat in a restaurant, my eyes go fuzzy. And so ask them if they'd be prepared to do an experiment at the next restaurant you went to. And they may feel the fuzziness in the eyes, but it doesn't always follow. And you can talk about it. Talk them down and see if you can get them to realise that what they're doing is creating a stress response unnecessarily. Because this anxiety is really frightening for them. Then talk through experiments about what they could do to try things differently. And get them to try the experiments. Plan things in advance so it's easier for them, and talk it through afterwards. It's also worth getting some advice, reading some books, looking on the internet about self-soothing techniques you could teach them. Things like counting to 10 or counting back from 10 or breathing or taking a walk or listening to music. And if you're wanting techniques for calming hyper children down, things like punch bags and dance mats are good for that. So basically, you take the issue seriously and get close to the child and talk them through exactly what they're feeling when and the logic behind it or the lack of logic behind it. Get them to experiment and get them to employ soothing techniques for when they feel the trigger. And then you too watch the experiments, and you can come in with your observations about why it escalates or how they manage to de-escalate it. and give them super praise for when they have tried something and have learnt something and maybe taken it down just a notch. Meanwhile, as a step-parent, this is sometimes another length to which we have to go that we weren't expecting. We were expecting normal children. So you and your partner also sort out strategies for how to cope when the anxiety kicks in. For example, if the child is stopping you going out, maybe you come to an agreement whereby one of you will go and the other won't. Or you put in an alternative strategy. The child can go to a neighbour at very short notice rather than come out with you to somewhere they don't want to go. Or just think through what it means for you and how you can mitigate the downsides of this anxiety. Because if this child is less stressed about what it does for the family, it'll be better for the child too. And don't forget to look after yourself in all of this, because that child needs you to help them sort out their anxiety, if you can. And therefore, in order to do that, you need to look after yourself so you can continue to be able to do that and go that extra mile. I run workshops, sessions, an email response service, and booklets. You can find links to my website, Instagram, Twitter, in the description box below.